Greetings.
Wow.
And salutations, Free Rotation Nation, and welcome to another episode of the Free Rotation Podcast. And today I am joined with our own little goose girl, Chris. Our fairy godmother, Bobby.
I do have fucking nice hair.
Chris still looks shocked.
Captain Bluebeard, Angie.
Hello.
And somebody with a useless minor in folklore. That's me.
Is that really your minor?
I have a minor in it, yeah.
Guten Tag,
wow.
meine Freundin.
Oh, see, okay, that's more German than what I did.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Guten
Ja, boy,
Tag,
I sprechen Sie.
friends, and hello. But yeah, so today, Angie, I think, just checked out.
Volkswagen.
So today we're talking about the origins of different fairy tales, and we all have picked some of our favorite fairy tales, and we're going to give you the actual not Disney-fied version of these fairy tales. Some of them actually are originally folk tales, and
Almost all of them.
almost all of them are. I think the one example that we have here is Snow White is the one that is not technically a folk tale.
Either Snow Queen.
Or the Snow Queen. Anything with some magic in it that's like originated as magic is not a fairy tale or a folk tale. But what we are going to do is educate the masses today about useless things like folk tales and fairy tales and tell you where they came from and why they are really, really fucked up. So, children in the class,
Hooray.
who would like to tell their story first to the audience and tell them how fucked up it actually is?
Cool. I'll talk about Jack and the Beanstalk, I guess, because I have a lot to say about this one.
Okay.
So, let me pull up my notes real quick. Here we go.
Bobby is prepared as ever.
I have them written down, asshole. All right. So, Jack and the Beanstalk. Jack lives in a poor house with his mom. And mom's like, hey, we need to sell our cow to feed the family. So he goes to the market to sell the cow. And this kind of, I don't want to say wizard, but like magic dude comes up to him.
Shady-looking Gandalf dude.
Shady-looking Gandalf dude comes up to him and is like, hey, man.
Hey, kid, you want to buy some magic?
Yeah. You want these, like, I don't have any gold, but I'll give you these beans for your cow. Jack, being a fucking idiot, decides to go with it. He's like, yeah, sure. Just only feed the family. So goes back home with the beans, and his mom's furious. Like, we're gonna starve. We're actually just gonna starve.
Yeah. And now we don't even have milk or
Exactly.
cow.
Exactly. So she throws the beans out the window. They wake up the next morning. A giant beanstalk has grown in their backyard, and Jack's like, "I'm big dumb. I'm gonna climb up and see what the fuck happens." So he does, and he there's a castle up there.
Can I interrupt for a second? And I want you to tell every fairy tale just in whatever stupid, like, hey, you just fucked hard. That's all it is.
He is. Like, ugh. Anyway, so he goes up in the castle. Turns out the giant lives there. Giant's got a lot of shit. Guess what? Jack wants that shit. So, and at the first time he goes up there, he steals. There's multiple versions. Sometimes he goes up there 3 times. Sometimes he goes up there once. It depends on which version. There's like 18 versions. But he goes up there. First time, steals his gold. Second time, steals the hen that lays golden eggs. Third time, tries to steal the harp. After a while, Giant's kind of sick of this shit and acts castle doctoring. Which, with Becky, can you clue our listeners in on castle doctoring?
Oh, whenever somebody breaks into your property, you have the right to, like, fuck their shit up.
Yeah.
Okay, but Jack, as the purchaser of said beans, which grew the branch in the castle, owns that property.
Are we legitimately having a property, like, litigation
I'm
right
just
now?
saying.
So I don't think if
I represent Jack.
So I don't think if I throw a ladder into my neighbor's window, I'm allowed to just take his house. Oh,
Yeah.
that's my ladder, bro. Everything in here's mine.
Let's put
I'm
it
not
to the
sure
test.
that's how that works.
Let's do it.
But Jack runs away, goes down to his mom's house, gets an axe, chops in the beanstalk, and fucking kills the giant. Like, bro, you stole everything from this man's, and you're just gonna kill him. It's fucked up. Real messed up. But yeah, that's and it turns out there are more stories dealing with Jack, and he actually just becomes king of the universe at one point.
So wait, there's a multiple storyline with Jack?
Yes, there's like 18 of them.
Okay.
And they're all printed in, I have the notes right here, printed in around about our Coldfire or Christmas Entertainments. They were called entertainment pamphlets. They were printed back in the day, like comic books, but for old-timey English folks.
Interesting.
Yeah, but there's a bunch of them, and there's a variant where Jack doesn't get magic beans, he gets a magic stick and kills his fucking dad with it. Yeah. And then people say that the beanstalk is an allusion to Jacob's ladder in the Bible, or it signifies Jack's sexual awakening, and the beanstalk being his first erection and such. It's fucking
Jack and his beanstalk.
yeah. No, it's just like there's a huge article. They're really interested in learning more in the Irish Times. They did like a huge article about Jack and the Beanstalk. I guess there's nothing going on in Ireland, and they talk about it. It's like 10 pages long. It's wild. It goes into a whole bunch of shit.
I just like that Jack and the Beanstalk is actually an episodic following of Jack and how he kills his entire family to become the one king to rule them all or something like that.
He's Sauron.
One
Essentially-
stick to rule them all.
Yeah. Oh my god. It says white beater stick.
Oh no, he does have a cool last name though. It's Spriggans. That's a
Jack Spriggans?
Yeah, it's a neat last name.
Get it? Because it's sprig? And
Yeah.
Yeah,
it-
stick.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Jack and the Beanstalk, kids. It's wild.
So it wasn't any really dark origins. It was
No.
just more of an episodic adventure for Jack and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You can kind of say it's more of an allegory for like David and Goliath too, right?
Yeah, that kind of stuff. And as I think Chris said before we started recording, there's a ton of stories from back then that were kids, just dudes stealing from ogres.
Yeah, there's a whole genre of like folktales that are called boy steals from ogre. Like that's how they classify them, and all these go into it. Where you have Jack and the Beanstalk and all the stories about like young knights breaking in to steal dragon's gold. Like it's all the same. There's a giant being that is not necessarily supernatural, but just stronger and bigger than everybody, and that hoards things, and that the poor people want all these things.
Yeah. And usually when they're monsters, they're like way away. Like this is up in the sky, dragons on top of a mountain, and yet let's go make them a villain by stealing from them. Like suddenly that becomes a bad thing.
Well, I look
like
at,
you antagonized it to murder.
Well, and I look at it more like this is more like because a lot of these stories, the boy who steals from the ogre or whatever, they're all poor. They're all dirt poor, and I wonder if these are basically like peasant stories of allegories, like their dreamings of stealing from the king.
Yeah.
There's some being that has way more power than you, that has everything you want.
It doesn't help anybody with it.
And if you, I mean, it's like stealing from the king's forest. That was a death sentence. If you steal from the king's treasure room, they're probably going to murder you.
Yeah.
But these are ways that, like, the peasants can get around that and make themselves feel better. Like, there's a hero.
So they dared to steal a king's dare.
Yeah.
Pretty
I mean,
much.
basically the same. I think that's the same mentality they have. Like, there's someone that has everything we want, that has infinite power, that can point at me and say, off with my head. But if I manage to get in there and steal everything, then I'll be as powerful as they are.
Well, it's like Robin Hood almost, like which is more of a folktale than anything about stealing from the rich to give back to the poor. And it is funny kind of thinking about it, though, that, of course, I mean, if I was a troll or an ogre and somebody came into my house and was stealing all my precious stuff just because he was a jackass and bought some beans and then found a way up to my house, I think the moral of the stories were that you can overcome what you are and your adversity to become better. Just wish a lot of times a metaphorical hurdle of some sort. It's just funny that stealing is generally the one way to go about it.
That's how they do it.
Yeah, you just steal some stuff and you'll get rich.
Nah, now you steal NFTs now.
I like it.
Well, it's not like their currency had serial numbers to prove
True.
they stole it.
Yeah.
True.
And nobody really was like, hey, where'd you get gold all of a sudden?
Yeah, where'd you get that goose or that hen that's laying that golden egg?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd
found
ask that question. Like, the fuck kind of goose is this?
And who really wants a golden egg?
If it's pure gold, who
You melt
cares?
that shit down.
Yeah.
Well, not only that,
True.
but like you also like, and it's weird because I've done just doing a little research on my own, just from others topics. Some of the worst tortures back in the day they reserved them for people that were forging coins, like gold and the currency of the land. So that was a serious thought. Like, you didn't make your own currency, but if you stole it, it's theft. It's different. You can get the
Right.
money without having these, I mean, back in the day, heinous tortures. They would probably not be thrilled if you stole, but they probably wouldn't boil you in acid or... It's just
Well,
different.
the aftermath of World War I can teach you what happens when you have an influx of
God.
money. So, I mean, I get it. And that's Germany, so that's even funnier. But yeah, so I mean, Jack and the Beanstalk is like a good just example of like a wholesome.
Here's your base fairy tale.
Here's your base fairy tale. Angela, would you like to tell your tale
Ooh.
of adversity and letting it go?
My tale of woe. Oh, so we're doing Snow Queen first. Okay. So this is the actual fairy tale. She wasn't based in folklore. Hans Christian Andersen wrote The Snow Queen in 1844. It centers around two main characters, Gerda and Kaya. Or some people call him Key, but his name's Kaya. And it's told in 7 parts. So the first one is about the mirror and its pieces. Didn't know there was a mirror in the story, did you?
Mm-mm.
No.
A little boy and a little girl. Well, I can't read my writing, so we're just going to keep going. The flower garden of the woman who knew magic. The prince and the princess. The little robber girl. The Lap woman and the Fin woman. And then what happened at the Snow Queen's place and what happened afterwards. It's intriguing. What happened?
That's a lot.
Girl, what happened? So what happens is, in the first part, the devil in the form of a troll makes a magic mirror. And what he does is he's made it to not distort reality, but the reflections it shows are only the negative and the bad, and it enhances them. So it doesn't reflect anything positive. And they take it around the world and they show people and basically like ruin their lives. And they're so happy and just giddy. So the devil and the demons are like, let's take it to heaven and show God and the angels what their true reflections are. Let's like make them look in the mirror. But on the way, they're so like happy with the thought and laughing. And they laugh so hard and they're shaking so much they drop the mirror. Which I just picture it. Oh, damn. So the mirror falls to the earth and it cracks into millions of shards. And the shards are like fine grains of sand. And it gets in people's eyes and their hearts. And it hardens their hearts into icy, like, I hate everything. And all they can see are like the negative things in people. They can't see the beauty. They can only see the reason. So they lose faith. They lose like the ability to appreciate beauty. Well, the two kids, Gerda and Kaya, they live next door to each other. They're not brother and sister, so it's not a Hansel and Gretel type story. And they have a flower garden that it's called like a buffer or a butter or something like that. It's basically a gutter. But they called it something weird.
Foreign languages are wild.
A guitar.
Come on. So they would play across the rose garden. And then one day, Kaya gets sand in his eye and in his heart. And he just hates everything, including Gerda. He doesn't like anybody. He starts playing with older boys. He doesn't want to play with her. He just abandons her. And so one winter, he's off playing with the older boys. And he comes across a sled and a gorgeous lady in a white coat. And she's like, hey, why don't you come with me? And, hold on, she offers him some.
This is like Chronicles of Narnia bullshit.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah, well, it is kind of based on... Well, Chronicles of Narnia takes off of the White Witch is the Snow Queen.
Right.
Well, and so she offers him, like some candy or something. And he gets in the sled with her and they go back and she gives him 2 kisses. She kisses him once so he doesn't feel cold. And she kisses him twice so he forgets everything. If she kissed him a 3rd time, he'd die. And she whisks him off. We don't hear from him again for a while because it's a story about Gerda. Surprisingly, a female heroine. Or just heroine. You get what I'm saying. Female heroine.
A female main character
Yes, very
in one of
redundant.
these tales.
So Gerda, she, and that summer she comes out and she can't find Kai and she's looking everywhere for him. And she comes across, so she refuses to accept that he's gone and she goes down to the river and she offers the river her red shoes. Which, by the way, I'd like to point out in fairy tales and folklore, red seems to be the color of children and innocence. And like the loss of it, but the river doesn't take her shoes. So I think that this in itself is a metaphor that she keeps her innocence, which is the theme of the book. And she realizes, okay, so he didn't drown because the river didn't accept her shoes, but then the river like floats up a boat. She gets in it and it takes her down the river to her next place, which happened to be a sorceress that had a garden of eternal summer.
Oh,
Now,
that's cool.
Yeah, up in like these cold, snowy, frozen tundras where they live, like this is a big deal. And there's flowers everywhere. So the sorceress causes her to forget everybody and also has to kill her plants because a plant reminds her of Kai and that's what she's trying to get Gerda to forget. So Gerda's like happy there with the sorceress, but then she sees a single rose and she remembers him and she starts crying. And as her tears hit the ground, flowers bloom up and a bush tells her, while we were under the ground, we didn't see him there. He's not dead. So she ends up escaping the garden. And a crow comes up to her and was like, hey, I saw your dude at a castle. He's a prince now. Like, I saw him. So she goes to this castle of the prince and the princess. And she meets the princess, and the princess is like, hey, I'm just trying to find somebody smart as me, and I found this guy. Like, I just needed somebody who could stay on my wavelength. And so the princess like, yeah, I'm not your dude, but, we'll help you. So they give her a carriage and warm clothes. And because by the time she escapes the Garden of Eternal Summer, it's fall. Like, she's missed a whole season. And as she goes out in this carriage, which is a really nice, royal carriage, she gets set upon by robbers. And they take her to their castle, where she meets the robber hag and the little robber girl. And she becomes friends with the little robber girl, who has these pet doves who tell her, hey, we know exactly where he is. He's at the Snow Witch, or the Snow Queen. And the Snow Queen has snow bees. So the snowflakes form bees, and she's the queen bee. It's really interesting. I was like, oh, I see what you did there. Well, she still needs to escape from the robber palace. So there's a reindeer there named Bay. B-A-E. And Bay says, you know what? I'm from Lapland. I'll take you there. I know exactly how to get there. It's where I'm from. So she gets on Bay and he rides off. And as they're going, like, she needs to eat and she needs help. And they come across a Lap woman. And the Lap woman knows that the secret to how Gerda can save Kai is her innocence and her wholesomeness. And that's the only thing. That's her secret gift. And she tells the reindeer, she's like, look how every creature of the forest and everything has helped her. Even adults have come together to help her. And she's like, that's her true gift. And that's what she needs. And we can't tell her because telling someone, that they have that gift erases that gift. So she writes it in a note and she goes to the Finnish woman next. The Finnish woman knows secret. I don't really know why she's in the story. She didn't really do anything to help.
It's like, hey, wait, here's this side character we need to write an entire epilogue about later. That's the sequel. That's the sequel character.
But she lives like 2 miles from the Snow Queen's palace. Well, the Snow Queen lives on a frozen lake. And under the lake is Kai. And he's turned blue with the ice. And he has this like Chinese puzzle of ice shards. He has to spell out a word the Snow Queen gave him so he can free himself. And of course he's under ice. And picture trying to put tiny ice shards in a word. The Snow Queen's not there. Her throne is there. But she's not there. Well, Gerda gets there, and the snow bees try to block her path. And so Gerda says the Lord's Prayer. Her breath forms tiny angels, and they go out
Slaughter.
and part the bees. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they killed him. You don't hear that, but then she goes out onto the ice, and she sees Kai, and he still doesn't care about her. Like, he still has the shards in his eyes, and she starts crying, and the warmth of her tears and the love in her heart melts the ice in his heart, melts the ice of the pond and in his heart. And then it also causes a rose to bloom. And when he sees the flowers she's brought, he starts crying, which cries the ice shard out of his eye. And then they start singing a song they sang when they were kids, and they're so happy. They dance around, and then the ice shards start dancing because they're happy too. And they spell the word eternity, which was the word that would free him. And so they go get the Finnish woman and the Lap woman, and they have Bay the reindeer, and they go get the little robber girl, and they go home to grandmother. And that's it. And the Snow Queen lived her life in a warmer climate, it said. She had left him there.
She just flew south for the winter and was like, fuck this guy.
Well, I guess it took him forever. She's like, this motherfucker's never going to spell this goddamn word. So
climate change is on the way. I gotta go.
She leaves him and some of her bees, not all of them, and they go to warmer climates where she can live her life happily.
Nothing bad happens to her. She's like,
I love
beach.
that.
She's
It's like this super
I kidnapped a kid.
I love that it's this super wholesome hero's journey, and it's all this, and then meanwhile the bad guy's like, I went to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Doing a volcano tour now.
It's an interesting fairy tale because there's really, really nothing like don't do this. What it says is you can't stop looking at the beauty in things and see just the scientific reasons behind it. And you need to be able to see the beauty of what you're looking at. Sure, like there's bugs on a rose, but it's also a rose and it's gorgeous. Just because it exists. You don't have to completely take away the innocence of everything. So I thought that was interesting, and yeah, she lived happily ever after. Oh, she would not only free him, but she'd give him a pair of skates.
Fuck
So
yeah.
that he could get around.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
he could like ice skate. I guess
I'm
maybe
like, she wasn't all bad.
maybe
She literally
like,
gave him a spelling bee and a gift, and he's like, duh.
Well, they never said the kids are fucking smart, so I
Wait a
get
minute.
it.
Is this where spelling bee comes from?
Oh, fuck.
Like, it totally
She's
is,
the
isn't
queen
it?
bee.
And he had to spell a word to get out. What the fuck?
you found the meaning of this entire fairy tale with Chris just being dumb.
Yeah. Well, that's... And Hans Christian said he wrote it just to point out that kids need to be able to retain their innocence.
They need to
And
be
that,
kids.
and that adults shouldn't forget to be innocent and appreciate the simple things and stop letting science take over everything.
Wasn't Hans the name of the bad guy in the first Frozen movie? The dude the sister wanted to marry? Hans.
I thought Hans was the dude. I don't know anything about
In
Frozen.
what movie?
I'm an adult and have never seen it because I don't have children.
So I didn't write this down because it is pretty obvious, like, what was a direct relation to this. And it is interesting because, you know, when you think about how the Snow Queen went south and then Elsa, they had found her, right? Wasn't she like an adopted sister?
No, I think she was a true sister.
I don't know.
I don't know. I've never watched
I've never watched it.
This is where we really get dicked on in the comments is people telling us, how the fuck you don't know about Frozen? Let it go.
Well, I know that there's some history behind Frozen. Like, there's a thing that Anna and her husband go off and their parents got in a boat wreck caused by the Snow Queen, and that's how Elsa got her powers, is blah, blah, blah. But Elsa her heart's frozen. Like, she has the shard. And then she has to be released of this. So it really does carry that same premise. And once she learns how to love and see the good in stuff again and let it go.
Yeah.
I love it.
Let it go.
I love it.
Oh, my.
So it was interesting. There's not a lot of fairy tales that came out of this because it's too wholesome.
I was about to say, it's more of an epic, if anything, because it tells, like, this long hero's journey for Greta. And the end of the story is Gerda. Is it Gerda or Greta?
Gerda.
Gerda.
and Kai.
Okay, my bad. So, sorry, Greta. I'm apologizing, Gerda. Wow. But really, at the end of the day, what it is it's just, to me, it reminds me of like a Hayao Miyazaki movie where it's like this character going through like growing up and becoming, like there's nothing wrong with still being an innocent child, but being brave enough to go and help your friend.
Yeah. I kind of wondered if this is also where Evanescence got inspired for her song Frozen.
Also, this chick was not brave, by the way. Gerda sucked. The river gave her a boat.
Yeah.
The deer took her to where she needed to go. She didn't do anything.
Listen, if a river just was like, hey,
She
here's a
thumbed
boat,
a
I would
ride.
have dipped out, okay? Like, I'm like, no, I'm not fucking getting in
And
that
like
boat.
the crows, like
Everything literally took her to where she had to
the
be.
doves.
She literally had to be present.
The little robber girl's the one who helped her escape.
Yeah.
Like, she took on all this. She was like, you know what? I'll face off with my grandma, the robber hag.
All I'm saying is nature gave her a lot of handouts, and she should have just pulled herself up by her bootstraps and gone and rescued her friend.
Yes, she did.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Well, she cried.
Yeah. It's too hard.
She
Okay,
cried.
was she a heroine? Or heroine? Heroine.
I'm
Addict?
pretty sure the deer and the little the robber
Yeah,
girl
Bay
are the
is
heroines.
definitely. Yeah, poor Bay.
They're the real heroes here.
Yeah.
They did all the hard work.
Yeah.
We're learning a lot this episode. Okay.
But yeah, so that was that fairy tale, and I thought it had like a dark twist in it because you hear about the boy frozen under the ice, and she's got to get past the Snow Queen, but no, other than the little snow bees.
She's literally trying to teach him and give him a present, and she went on vacation and was like, "Dude, figure it out and come meet me."
It was like
and he's like, "Dumb."
it was like summer homework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it wasn't her fault that he had the glass shards in his eye.
He already had it when she grabbed him.
Exactly, and I think
And that was all the troll's
well,
fault.
he had seen her before he got the glass shards. She was kind of like, hey, from the snow, and he's like, nope. But she didn't try and take him when he was innocent. She waited until he wasn't innocent to take him, and then she gave him a choice. Do you want to come with me? She didn't snatch him, and then she kissed him. Yeah. Now, if a hot snow lady kisses me, I might go with her.
I mean, same. I'm down. Fuck
Literally, all I'm picturing is like a super pale, witchy lady with dark hair on a beach under a big umbrella with like a big witch hat on, putting on like sunscreen.
But she's like
eating like a
she's
fruity
making
drink.
she's
She's got
making
a
her own
mimosa.
margarita because she can make ice.
She's just got a fruity drink and there's ice forming in it. And she's just like, "What's up?" Looking at the beach, and I'm like,
Like, is this motherfucker ever gonna get here?
"Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
I gotta."
And I love
Via on
it
the beach
specifies
and-
she went to warmer climate as the Snow Queen. So I'm like, maybe her heart was also warmed up. Maybe she got rid of the shard, but she'd already stuck him under the ice, and there was a spell that he couldn't get out at all until he figured out this word.
Hey, dum-dum, it only spells one word. Rock and roll.
Yeah.
I
Which
wish-
she told him the word.
Hot dog.
told
Just
him the
spell
word.
out the word hot dog.
And here's the thing. She even told him, you just have to spell the word eternity with ice shards.
I'm pretty sure this whole story is about how guys are morons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish.
And
He's the
so
dumbest person on the
he's
planet.
just under the ice. You know, it said it's like a Chinese puzzle, and I meant to look up what a Chinese puzzle was, but I'm sure it's complicated. Maybe finger traps, and I mean, it can't be that easy.
I mean, I have to imagine she was like, I need you to spell the word Ferrari. Also, I've left you a Ferrari. Because that would have
Exactly.
been his vehicle back
Yeah.
then. And he's like, nah, I'm going to hang out here. It's
Yeah.
easy.
Like the fact that the ice shards dance themselves into the words.
Yeah, they were trying to help him too. This
Yeah.
guy's just an idiot.
Like, we're
You know
so
what?
happy, and they're like, we're happy, but we're tired. Eternity, just fucking fuck off.
Hashtag Team Snow Queen.
Yeah,
These other people suck.
yeah.
Fuck, is this a,
She's the real hero
Really
here.
took a turn on this one.
fuck, is this a story about me?
She didn't do anything wrong.
Fuck.
No.
The only one who was hateful and vicious in this whole story was Kai when he had the thing in his eye. He was mean to Gerda.
Kind of the devil and the ogres.
Yeah.
They were kind of not good. They were trying to bring down
Yeah.
all of
No, that's
everything.
true. Oh, so like the other pieces of the glass, the mirror. I mean, there's still some sand here, still here. It's still here, but when it gets in your eye, you don't have to let it get in your heart, and you can choose
moral of
to
the
see the
story.
beauty and shed the sand from your eye.
Fair enough.
Thank
Snow
God
Queen
he-
got sand in her eye when she went to the beach.
Also, don't trip while you're carrying a mirror for the
True.
rest of us.
Yeah, when you're up to no good,
Be careful.
don't laugh so hard you drop your prank. Like, seriously? I just love the fact that, well, so in one translation, he's a troll. In the other, like, they're goblins and hobgoblins.
Sure.
So I'm like, it's all the same.
Just imps,
Like,
whatever.
but I love that our word troll, to this day, is still used for somebody who meanly pranks. And it came all the way from 1844.
What a bunch of jackasses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Team
You know
Snow Queen.
what? Let's go show Michael his reflection. Oh my god, it's a good idea. I just like the fact that they laughed so hard at their own joke, they dropped it.
Yeah, they're idiots too. The Snow Queen's the only one reasonable, and she's like, it's fucking cold here. I'm going home.
Yeah.
And took off.
And you're a goddamn idiot, because I told you the fucking word to spell, and you still can't spell it.
And I left you skate so you could skate to where I'm at
He
on the
failed his
beach.
spelling bee.
Yeah,
The word had to spell itself.
he's an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's an idiot. Gerda's lazy. The Snow Queen was like, fuck this, I'm out. These people suck.
Fuck this shit.
I'm going home. And she went on vacation.
Yeah. And said she was never really heard from again.
The true hero.
Because she's not a villain.
Yeah.
Fair.
She just went on vacay and was like, margaritas for all.
I
Yeah.
like how this turned into like a dick on the snow or everybody in the Snow Queen except the Snow Queen. I do
Well,
appreciate that.
You don't hear a lot of villains that leave gifts
I
and try
know.
to give you a way out.
Yeah. Like here it is. It's Saw, but really a
And
lot
they
more
tell
nicer.
you how to do it. Yeah, it'd be like Saw if there was like a chainsaw coming at you, and he's like, flip the switch and I'll give you $100 and it'll cut off. And you're like, I don't know
And
how
we'll call the
fingers
Uber.
work.
We'll call the Uber to get you back out.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, because she kissed him once. He was immune to the cold. So even though he was blue and cold, he wasn't frozen. He was immune to it.
Yeah, she kissed him so he wouldn't die.
Yeah. And then she kissed him so he would forget everybody. Not be same that the sorceress with the eternal garden. She just wanted Gerda to stop crying and be happy.
Yeah, she wanted him to not be sad all the time
Yeah.
and or die.
Yeah.
She didn't kiss him the third time, which would have killed him. And then she left him gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spell a word and you have eternal life.
Hashtag Snow Queen for
your
the win.
freedom. Yeah.
Guy's a dumbass.
And then when she figured it out that everybody around her was stupid, she left.
I'm just going on vacation.
She's like, I'm better than all these people. I'm not going to be here anymore.
I'm just
Agreed.
going to go south for the winter.
Yeah, I like her.
All right then. Okay.
Can you top that, Beckles? Don't think so.
No, all of my stories have parent issues, and they're actually dark versions of the story. Yeah, I think me and Chris actually had the latter versions of like the whole. But you did somebody that was actually pretty dark, right? You did Red Riding Hood. Okay, never mind.
That
She
shit's
does.
fucked.
Yeah, we started wholesome. Now let's go down the left field. Anyway, so my first story I would like to tell you all is Little Snow White, which I'm going to tell the actual like not Disney-fied version, and it'll switch back and forth because there's two different versions of the story that Grimm's published, and the first one in 1812 was the original version, which was kind of even fuckier than the subsequent one that came after that.
They tried to tone it down a little bit.
They did. Starting out with the fact that in the original version, the beautiful queen is actually Snow White's mother. And in the story, she's sitting at an open window and she looks out and she decides that while she's sewing that she wants to have a daughter who has the skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. And when she pricks her finger, it falls onto the snow, and that's where she gets that idea. So we flash forward a little bit. And the queen, who is Snow White's mother in the original version, is very vain to the point that she starts to resent Snow White when, by the age of 7, Snow White looks as pretty much the fairest woman or the girl in the world or whatever. And she has a magic mirror like in Snow Queen. Interesting, which is kind of funny because her heart is hardened like the people in the, it's kind of interesting. So she goes to the mirror and says, hey, yo, mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall. That's not actually in the original. But she asks who the fairest is in the land, and the mirror replies that little Snow White is the fairest in the land. And so out of anger, she tells her huntsman, I want you to take Snow White out into the forest, and I want you to bring her liver and lungs for me to salt and cook. At this point, the huntsman takes Snow White out, and Snow White, begging for her life, says, please let me go. I will never be seen again. And the huntsman, pitying her, lets her go, kills the boar, and brings back the lungs and liver of the boar, who then the cook for the queen salts it, boils it, and eats it. In the later versions, it's a heart. Because back in the day, they believed witches would eat the hearts of humans to find immortality. Oh. So sometime later, Snow White's like running through the forest, and she comes across this little tiny cottage where she realizes that 7 dwarves live. She goes in, nobody's there, and she sees that they have the house is in disarray, but she goes and eats their food, drinks their wine, uses their utensils.
Thief.
Yeah. And then lays in all of their beds until the very last one she finds comfortable. So at that point, the dwarves come back and they're like, hey, there's some lady in our house. What the hell is going on? And they all realize that she's used everything and eaten their food. But they realize with her beauty that...
but they work their ass off all day,
right.
too.
Yeah.
They're exhausted.
They're mining, yeah.
So they're looking at her like, hey, what's up? And then she wakes up and they realize how beautiful she is. And they're like, we'll let you live here after she tells the story about her mother, which is later the stepmother in the story, because the Grimm brothers realize it's kind of fucked up that your mom is trying to eat you.
Also weird that 7 dudes living alone would let a pretty lady stay with them.
Yeah, a little
How
strange.
shocking. Young,
but
innocent, pretty lady.
So basically they say, hey, don't answer the door. The queen is going to figure out where you are one day, and so you need to protect yourself. So later the queen does ask the mirror again, who is the fairest one of them all? And the mirror says that you are very fair, but Snow White lives out in the mountains with the dwarves, and she is still the fairest of them all. So the queen, in a fit of rage, the first thing she does is turn herself into an old peddler woman and tries to goes to the cottage and tells Snow White, hey, I have these beautiful lace bodices. Would you like one? Snow White, of course, she's a dumbass. And so the lady the little peddler woman laces her up and suffocates her to the point of death. So the peddler woman leaves. Later, the dwarves come back and they are like, oh, shit, she's dead. Wait a minute. That's a really tight bodice. Cuts it off. She starts breathing again.
Tits flop out everywhere. They did.
Once again, they say,
Comfortable.
the queen is coming after you. Don't answer the door.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. It's so stupid. Anyways, so then once again, the queen, a little time later, asks the mirror again, who is the fairest one of them all. And he repeats again, you are fair, my queen. However, Snow White out in the mountains with the dwarves is the fairest one of them all. So then she disguises herself as another woman selling combs. And she goes to the house and she says, I'm selling combs. It's beautiful comb. Would you like one? Snow White this time is like, I'm not supposed to let people in, but then she sees shiny and she's like, okay, I'll take it. So she puts it in her hair and it's poison. So at that point she drops down in what the woman thinks is her being dead. So she leaves again.
You would think, though, at this point, she's like, the bitch came alive last time. I better stab her.
Yeah.
I should probably stab her.
Also, bring the mirror with me so after I think she's dead, hey,
bitch.
she prettier than me yet?
Right.
Yeah, but she
Yeah.
might drop it in a fit of rage.
Right. So then...
No laughing.
So then she leaves. The dwarves come back. They're like, this dumb bitch, she's dead again. Pulls the comb out of her hair. And they're like, it was the evil queen. She came back. Stop trying to let these people into the house. So...
And it also isn't her house to let people into.
It's not let her. So once again, the queen goes back, and sometime later she says again, hey, mirror, am I the fairest now? And he's like, no, bitch, she's still alive. So this time she comes back again, but this time what she did is she made a beautiful a beautiful red apple, and uses her power to imbue it with poison. So what ends up happening is she goes back, and once again she's like, "Oh my goodness, I have this beautiful apple. Would you like to have some?" This time Snow White does take a little bit more time not to let anybody in.
Like 30 seconds.
Yeah, like 30 seconds. But what the queen does is she's very cunning. So what she does is she cuts the apple in half and says, "I'll eat this half to show you it's fine. Here's the other half." Well, Snow White, being a greedy little bitch because she eats everything given to her, eats the part
And stuff not given to her.
and yeah, exactly. Eats the apple, is poisoned, and dies. So off she goes again. This time the dwarves come back and they're like, "This dumb fucker. They can't figure out what's wrong with her." But what they do mourn her for 3 days, and then at that point they realize, oh, she's not rotting. Like this girl ain't rotting.
Jesus allegory.
Yeah, so they're like, you know what sounds good? We're gonna build this glass coffin and inscribe her name on it, and we're just gonna look at her because she's real pretty. Sometime later, at that point,
You know it's covered in like white splotches.
oh god,
I didn't want to say it.
She's so pretty.
So sometime later, at this point, a prince decides that he wants to stay at the cottage with the dwarves, and he sees the beautiful glass coffin with beautiful Snow White in it, and he's like, "Hey, that bitch be pretty. I want to buy her from you." And the dwarves are like, "No, she's our pretty bitch. We're going to keep her." And then he's like, "Well, I want to take her back with me to the castle so I can always look at her and gaze upon her."
Who are these people that just go around buying bitches?
I know. So,
Slavery.
Hey, is that one for sale?
yeah. So in
I like the looks of her.
So in the secondary version of this tale that comes out, they are taking her back, and then at that point they accidentally drop the coffin,
People
and
dropping
it
shit.
dislodges the apple from her throat. However, the original version is that he takes her back to the castle. He can't eat, he can't drink unless he's gazing upon her, and the servants get so mad they finally just punch her in the head, and the apple comes out. This is legitimately the first version of the story.
Heimlich maneuver.
So
And she bombed.
yeah, they realize she's alive, and then at that point, that's when the mirror tells the evil queen, "Hey, bitch, your daughter is now a queen," and blah blah blah. So she realizes that she's scared of the fact that Snow White's alive and probably wants revenge on her, but she's so jealous she has to go see what's going on.
But Snow White's a dumb bitch.
It is. She is.
Like, she didn't figure out, hey, this is my mom trying to kill me.
So sometime later, she does go to the wedding, and once they figure out who she is, the prince orders her to wear hot iron shoes and dance until she dies for a gift to Snow White. The end.
Nice.
What a tale.
So
I know what you want for our wedding night, honey.
want a little
To see your mom
dancing?
die horrifically dancing in hot iron shoes.
But there are, even though Snow White itself is considered an OG fairy tale, there are some stories about claiming and uncovered accounts of like folk tales that relate back to Snow White. So one is the German historian named Eckhard Sander had published a story regarding it, where he had uncovered an account that may have inspired it, which Margaret von Waldeck, a German countess born, or is based on her life. At the age of 16, she was forced by her stepmother to move away to Brussels. There, she fell in love with a prince who would later become the Prince of Spain, and her father and stepmother disapproved of the relationship. But there's all different ones with Roman legends regarding her. You see some with Hermes and Apollo and Greek stories. It's just interesting to find that at the story itself, the versions had to be edited because the first original version was too fucked.
Yeah.
Like, even the editors were like, we got to scale this back a little bit. Like, to the point of like, hey, her mom can't be murdering her, and then nobody can be punching her in the face to get the apple out of her mouth.
Yeah,
That's
so
my favorite part of the story.
Yeah.
So
the
the
servants
co-
are like, "Fuck this bitch."
Yeah, I'm sick of this shit because they had a lot of extra work. So in the other one, the coffin falls off the back of the carriage, carrying her to his castle, and it jostles it loose.
Yeah.
And as her dead body falls out, she's like, "Oh, I'm back, bitches."
Well, and that's really like
I'd run. Like,
well, and it's also interesting to note that the only version in which the prince meets Snow White before this whole thing happens is the Disney version.
Mm-hmm.
So they did cut out a lot of the Disney version, which probably was a good thing. But
I knew you.
I'm just saying, the subsequent versions of Snow White to come out in movies and stuff, much better.
All I'm saying is the dwarves should have stayed home one day and then enacted Castle Doctrine against the fucking queen.
Jesus Christ.
I did enjoy Snow White and the Huntsman.
I haven't seen
I did
those.
too.
It's a good movie.
Are they good? I need to
It is
watch
pretty
them.
good. It's actually like really like re-ups her as like a badass heroine instead of being like, oh my god, you have free stuff.
Yeah.
Can I have it?
Do her and Chris bone in it?
No,
No.
they make sexy eyes at each other.
Oh, he's way better looking than Edward.
And honestly, the huntsman was like old in the original story.
He's an old man.
He's an old man.
He's
And
literally a hunter back in the day. That's his job.
well, and there was also stories about the queen killing the huntsman afterwards. It's never mentioned in the original story. He just is like, oh, I feel real bad for you, kid. Can you get the hell out of here?
Yeah. Well,
Go.
and Once Upon a Time, like the Huntsman's curse, like
Right.
the evil witch Regina
Right.
curse. Okay, Once Upon a Time really did the Snow White story.
They did season
Well.
1 fine, and then they
Yeah.
were like, hey, guess what fairy tale we want to do next? Mulan. It's not even a fucking fairy tale.
They did
just a
Frozen
story.
too.
Yeah, and
They
the
had
Snow Queen.
when they
in
had the
same
Snow
season.
Queen and Elsa. I'm like, you can't.
Oh.
That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense.
It's the cinematic universe.
It
Yeah,
is.
they can do whatever they want.
All right, Christopher, what do you got?
So the first one I'm going to start with is one of my favorite ones, and it is Hansel und Gretzel, which pretty much everybody has heard.
Or
So
Gerda,
I like the
according to
movie.
Becky.
yeah,
Or
it's,
Gerda.
yeah.
Witch hunters.
So German folktale. I'm gonna do the brief one that everybody knows. Hansel and Gretel are led into the woods. Hansel leaves their brother and sister. Hansel leaves a trail of breadcrumbs to get back to their home. Birds eat the breadcrumbs. They wander in the woods. They find a witch's cottage that the stories most people hear, it's a gingerbread house. They start eating it. It's the house of a witch. She tries to eat them. They shove her into an oven. The end. So the real story, the original 1812 version, I say original, this is all, a lot of these are the Grimm brothers, that, and they collected all these stories from all over. We say Germany, but you have to remember it was also Prussia back then, and Germany was a lot bigger and more widespread, and blah, blah, blah. But these are all folk tales from mountain regions, and they kind of conglomerated them into one book so people could read them. So, the Hansel and Gretel story, the story starts off, Hansel and Gretel live with their mother and father, or mother and stepfather, or father and stepmother, excuse me, in a little cottage in the woods. The father is a woodcutter. They're very poor. A famine falls across the land, which is probably the little ice age, is probably where this originated. Famine falls across the land. They are running out of money and food and water. The stepmother tells the father, hey, we should probably lead the kids into the woods and just leave them so that there's enough food for us to survive. The father...
Yeah, 'cause fuck those kids.
Yeah, well,
Exactly.
the father's against this idea, like, pretty wholeheartedly. And she says, the stepmother basically convinces him by saying, it's them or all of us. Either they die or we all die. And he finally gives in. Well, when she finally convinces him, Hansel and Gretel are both awake and hear this that night because they're too hungry to sleep because there's just no food. So they get up the next morning. They go off on a trek to the woods. Hansel and Gretel know they're being led to the woods to be left to die, to be eaten by wolves and bears and whatever other creatures when there's no food. Well, the night before, when they first heard that that was their stepmother's plan, Gretel starts crying because she doesn't know what they're going to do because they're going to be led to their slaughter. Hansel is like, calms her down. He's like, hey, I have a plan. Just relax. He goes out into the night and picks up, he finds these little white stones that glow in the moonlight. Fills his pockets with them. So the next day, the stepmother and the father lead them out into the woods. They build a fire. They tell the children to stay by the fire. We're going to go get some more wood for the fire. And they just go home. Hansel and Gretel, the story is they stay there until the moon reaches its peak in the sky, which is, I assume, maybe just mean midnight. Mm-hmm. And along the trip, when they were being led into the woods, Hansel had been dropping the little white stones. At midnight, he looks, you can see the trail of them. They're glowing in the light. That's why he picked the white ones. And they make their way back to the cottage. It takes them all night. They get back the next day. When they arrive, the stepmother, or the father's overjoyed. He's so happy they're back because he didn't want to do this in the first place. The stepmother greets them with, basically, she's like, oh, we thought y'all wanted to stay in the woods since you slept there. What took you so long to get home?
Not our fault, your fault thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Victim blaming.
Pretty much. So they live for a couple more weeks or whatever, and then they're out of food again. So the stepmother tells the dad, We got to get rid of them. They have to go into the woods. We have to do it again. He says no at first. She keeps at him. He finally gives in. When he finally gives in, Hansel and Gretel are still awake in the middle of the night because apparently these kids don't sleep at all. And they hear it. Gretel starts crying. Hansel's like, hey, I got this. Goes to go get some more white rocks. Finds the door locked. He can't get out.
Oh.
So instead of finding little white rocks, he steals half a loaf of bread. And as the parents are leading them out into the woods again, he's just dropping little pieces of bread to follow the trail back. Parents take them much, much further into the woods this time. Much further. And leave them. And take off. They sit there. They wait till midnight again to see if they come back. No one comes back. They get up. Hansel's like, all right, Gretel, let's go. We're going to follow the breadcrumbs back to the house. Only to find that birds have eaten all the breadcrumbs. So there's nothing left to follow. They're deeper than they've ever been in the woods. They have no idea which direction to go, so they just start wandering through the woods. After 3 days of being without food and water alone in the woods, they see a house just in a clearing. And they walk up to it, and it is... The westernized story is gingerbread. In the originals, the walls of the house were made of just regular bread. The roof was made of cake, and the windows were a clear sugar. So they start eating because they're starving. While they're eating, they hear a voice, and the voice says, "Oh, it's a weird little poem thing. Basically,
Hey, bitch, is what you doing?
no, it's basically little mouse, who's nibbling on my house."
Oh.
And she comes out, and she's like, "Oh, I see your parents have abandoned you. I'll take pity on you. I'm gonna bring you in. I'll be your mother now." Hansel and Gretel, overjoyed that there's food at all, go into the house. She feeds them a lot of food, puts them to sleep. They go to sleep. While they're sleeping, the witch takes Hansel, takes him outside into a stall, like an animal stall, and locks him in. In the morning, Gretel gets up. The witch tells Gretel that her job is going to be to feed her brother until he gets fat enough for her to eat. So she goes and fetches water and bakes bread and gets food and all kinds of stuff, and she keeps feeding him. She feeds him every day for a month. And witches apparently in tales have red glowing eyes and really poor eyesight. Like they can't see really well at all. So basically the witch goes out there every day to check on Hansel to see if he's fat enough for her to, cook. And she has to get super close to see him in the stall. So what she does is makes him stick out his finger through the grate, through the bars, so she can see if he's fat enough. Well, apparently, Hansel's not a moron, and instead of sticking his finger out, he sticks a small little bone he found in the stall out.
Oh.
So she thinks he's not putting on any weight at all, and she just gets irate. And she's like, you know what? No matter what happens tomorrow, I'm killing and eating that asshole. That's how this is going.
Whatever.
I don't care if he's not putting on weight. I don't care about his
hungry.
metabolism or tapeworm or any of this.
Bulimic.
I'm eating him. So, Gretel wakes up next morning. The witch makes her go fetch a pail of water, and she starts a fire. And she's like, I've already made dough, so we're going to bake some bread before we go out there and grab him, and I slaughter, cook, and eat him. So the witch has a fire going in her stove, or oven, and she tells Gretel, I'm going to need you to get in the oven and see if it's hot enough to cook the bread. Gretel, also not a moron, was like, well, I'm probably not getting in that oven. That seems like a bad plan since she's already going to eat one of us. Play stupid. And she's like, I don't understand. What do you mean, get in the oven? And the witch is like, get in the oven, see if it's warm enough. And Gretel's, the whole time, she keeps feigning ignorant. She's like, I don't understand what you mean. How does one get in an oven? And the witch, who thinks she's just stupid, is like, look, it's big enough for you to get inside. It's big enough for me to get inside. And she leans her head in. And when she leans her head in, Gretel kicks her in the ass, forcing her all the way in the oven, closes the door, and sticks a metal rod through the opening so that the witch can't open it. And throughout the witch's screaming and perishing, Gretel flat out doesn't care, goes outside, unlocks her brother's cage, or the stall he's in. They go back into the witch's house, rob all of her jewels and coins, and start trying to make their way home. They finally do get home. Their stepmother has died in their interim, apparently.
Good.
And their father is overjoyed to see them. They take all the money and live happily ever after.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah. I'm gonna take you to the cottage and shove you in a fucking oven.
Not only so the part that gets me about this whole story is they did it twice to him.
Yeah, it wasn't
Not
like,
just once. They're
Both.
like, oh, they're back.
Hey, you
Both
didn't feel bad enough that you wouldn't do it again.
Yeah.
Plus, who chooses themselves over their kids? Like, the future
Again,
don't need as much to eat.
I keep looking at the story, and every time I go through it, I'm like, man, I feel really bad for these kids because everybody in their life system has tried to kill them repeatedly.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's trying to murder these poor children who are just hungry.
The funniest part I always think about these stories is like the bitch built a house out of not candy, but bread and baked goods, but she couldn't get out of a fucking metal oven. Like, she didn't have any magic, but she's gonna eat the kids.
Well, if it were lead. Like,
Oh, I guess
to be
it's
an oven,
true.
she's trapped because metal and witchery doesn't go together.
You right?
My favorite part is that both kids are not stupid.
Right.
And, like, everybody in their whole life is trying to
I'm
kill
like,
them. And
what
every time they're like,
what are oven? Instructions unclear. I made a horse. What do I do with oven?
But yeah,
Bitch, get in the oven.
she literally just feigned ignorance until the witch stuck her head all the way in there, and then she kicked her in the ass and locked her in.
I like to picture like Sparta kicking her in.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So, but it is sad too because a lot of these stories are like it's really parents who are really shitty, and it's like, hey, parents are, you have to overcome adversity and be smart and use your wits about you because fuck, your parents are gonna kill you one day. Like that's what it seems like.
I look at this one as more of I look at more like this story as more styled like the Wendigo stories. Mm-hmm. There was a huge famine that hit Europe during the Little Ice Age. And maybe this was a way for the parents to justify not feeding their kids. Like, they'll be fine if we put them in the woods.
Even historically, if you look at Mount Aokigahara in Japan, they would leave children and the infirmed at the mountain because they couldn't take care of them.
Yeah.
And go off into the woods and to die. That's why it's considered one of the most haunted places in the world.
But I do think about that. Like, is this how the peasants justified the actions they had to take during these famines? Just like the Wendigo eating the people and never being able to quench its hunger was kind of their way to justify cannibalism during these famines. Like, is this how they justified it amongst themselves? Like, if we put them in the woods, they'll probably be fine. They're kids. They're smart. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, Spartans did the same thing with their, like, their
Shaven
deformed
children.
malformed children.
Even in the U.S. here in the 20th century during the Great Depression, they sold their kids and abandoned them.
It was just, you had to or you would
You can
die.
work at 5 years old.
Yeah.
We can sell you, or we could potentially eat you,
Yeah.
or just leave you to die.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
It is, but again, we look at it through our lens versus the everyone we know is starving to death. Everyone is dying.
Yeah.
We've never
But
had
still,
that.
let's eat the stepmother. The stepmother's like, hey, leave the kids.
Yeah, that's the part that you're like, the dad's like, what the fuck? Kick her to the curb,
Yeah,
homie.
you go.
Yeah.
Save you some food, and then you eat her.
But again, I think it was a
You won't miss your ass
justification
cheek.
during really harsh times.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Dead ass, be thick.
Cut your ass off.
But there's no, like, a lot of fairy tales have, like, a moral at the end of them. I think the moral here is,
Don't trust your parents.
yeah, like,
Well, I wonder if it's
every
like-
adult tried to kill us
You
repeatedly.
gotta also think about it as like just use your smarts. Be
Yes.
smart. Don't you can't always trust authority. Actually,
Everybody.
it's teaching you not to trust authority. If you
Yeah.
think about it.
Because, everybody in their life tried to kill them.
Yeah.
It mentions 5 people in this story. 2 of them are children. 3 of them tried to murder the children.
Yeah, this isn't like the Snow Queen where all the
She just
adults
takes
helped
off.
her.
Yeah.
And even the grandma was nice. Even the Snow Queen was decent.
Even
but
the birds in my story, they fuck the kids. Like,
Yeah.
food.
we're gonna eat your motherfucking breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do it where you don't know.
But yeah, I personally have always liked that story because it's just like, there's no redeeming qualities at all.
No.
The kids just steal.
Well,
Yeah.
even in Snow White, if you know the original story, nobody has fucking redeeming qualities.
No.
The only reason why the prince wants her is she's really pretty to look at and she's dead.
Well,
Like,
also the Seven Dwarves at first, she was their prisoner. Like,
Yeah.
you ate all our shit, you're gonna work this off.
Well, and to be
She
fair,
was like
that is a proper response to someone you catch stealing
Yeah.
from you.
Yeah.
honestly, they
It's-
were the only ones who had the right to do anything. Like, hey, you broke into our house.
Yeah.
You
And
do realize
keep
we're minors, right?
Yeah, and you keep
weren't
bringing
really
this
good
crazy,
guys.
like, evil queen back to our house. I'm even wearing my evil queen shirt today.
And they worked for the evil queen, like, directly.
Yeah.
They mined directly for her. So, like, hey, you're gonna cost us our livelihood if you keep fucking doing this.
And to be fair, I don't know if there were many employment opportunities for little people back in the day.
Exactly.
LinkedIn didn't exist at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
She may have already had a jester, so I don't know what their other job opportunities
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
We're
So-
only useful for our tiny hands. That
Yeah, we
kick
can get
this
into
stuff.
small areas. Please don't
Yeah.
cost us our job and lives.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you're going to repay all
We're
this
not
stuff.
asking you a lot.
Yeah.
Just work off what you owe us and don't open the motherfucking door. And let us jizz on your coffin occasionally. That's all we ask.
How wholesome.
Well, this is the first part in our fairy tale / folklore series.
Ooh. Yeah, it turned out there's a lot to these stories.
There is.
I was thinking, I will knock these out like every 10 minutes. Angie's like, there's like, this is like a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Well, we hear typically, and when we think about it, we think about like the Americanized versions where it's a 10-minute cartoon.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's not what these
It's
were.
not.
Not only were these stories that people told their children around, the dinner fire, the campfire, whatever, this was the only form of entertainment back in the day. Like, word
Well-
of mouth oral histories was all they had.
Well, my,
Oral.
my
Oh, you were telling your Hansel and Gretel story. I was like, what happened next?
well, my,
I know the story. but I
My
didn't
other
hear it.
story actually has like a lot of history, like back to 7 BC.
Ooh,
So, yeah, it's a lot.
And we will get into it in our next episode.
Yay!
I was super invested in yours because I'd never read the whole show.
Yeah.
It was like they should make a fucking like little
I remember
animated series.
I
about that.
remember
Good.
reading about like seeing because my aunt when she first came here when I was little, she brought me like an original Hans Christian
Nice.
Andersen like thing, and I was like, ooh, the Snow Queen. And I looked at him like, that's a lot. I'm not gonna read that. I like Thumbelina. That's a good one.
Yeah.
She's just little.
She's just real tiny.
I like them.
I wonder too, like, I'm going to look into it because it just interests me. Like, a lot of these stories have mirrors in them. And I wonder what, like, the correlation is to that.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like the fairy tale cinematic universe.
well, I was looking at, like, when you were telling me your story, like, about the trolls that made the mirror that only reflected evil. It's basically a reverse Dorian Gray.
yeah,
Yeah.
It only shows the bad, whereas his only showed the good. And I wonder if
Right.
that has anything to do
like
with
a
it.
reflection of it. Yeah,
Also, in like Harry Potter, you had the mirror.
Mirror of Erised.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like to look in mirrors because my grandmother, my great grandmother, was like, mirrors are evil. It will show you things you don't want to see. Like, you're going to see stuff. And think about that game, The Three Kings, where you sit
Yep.
with the three mirrors, and then you lose track of which one is you.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder how much of that also goes back to mirrors were a luxury back in the day.
Yeah.
And, like, I assume most commoners could not have afforded a mirror.
yeah.
Like, how much of that was a justification for not having something?
Yeah.
Like, mirrors aren't inherently, I don't think they're inherently evil. I don't think
Right.
inanimate objects are. But if you're so poor and your whole family's going to be so poor forever that there's this thing that you can't have, no matter what, you just say it's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that means it's okay not to have
takes
it.
on, like,
Yeah.
supernatural
Yeah.
qualities.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It also is like a sign of prestige. Like,
Yeah.
the highest prestige is this mirror.
Yeah.
And mirrors back in the day were, it's what a real mirror is really, really slow moving liquid.
Yeah, it's a liquid.
So, and you think about how spirits cross water to get to and from it.
Well, that and you think, like, all these, like, Elizabethan and Victorian, like, prim and proper ladies all had these, like, exquisite, like, hand mirrors that were just gorgeous and silver. And,
Yeah.
like, it's one of those prestige things that if you're a serf or a knave or whatever you want to call it, just a working man, you're never going to have that. You can't have the funds to get that.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because in the D&D campaign we had with Becky, we were in like this haunted house, and up in an upstairs bedroom was an ornate silver mirror.
Nobody thinks about it. It's just
And
one
I
of
was
those
like,
things.
okay, this is important because there's a mirror here. So obviously they were important people.
Yeah, but I imagine, like, if you lived in a thatch hut back in the day, you were never going to have a mirror.
Yeah.
Who are those guys you saw at Dragon Con 2 years ago? The Ghost Dudes. Who are they? Where are
The
they
Ghost Brothers.
Yeah. No, one of them. The reason I don't look at mirrors at night anymore because one of them said something about like they were doing a thing in a mirror and then a reflection waved back at them. And I'm like hard pass
Yeah, the
out.
reflection changed.
Pass.
Yeah, Ghost
Hard
Brothers are awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so we will see y'all next week for part
Okay,
2.
yay.
Where can they find part 1? Becky?
You're listening to part 1.
If they're hearing this, they know where they can find
Shut
it.
the fuck up with the transition,
Where
Chris.
else can they
And
find
you
Yeah.
can find our other stuff on Facebook at TheFreeRotation.com. You can find us on Twitter at TheFreeRotation. We're also on YouTube and Twitch at TheFreeRotation. You can check us out at Weeby Geeks. There are all of the great podcasts at WeebyGeeksPC.com. And our backlog is at TheFreeRotation.com. But we are all on... Wait, I said that wrong. You can find us on your favorite Spotify app. What?
What?
You can find
Podcast.
us on
What?
Pornhub, pornhub.com/TheFreeRotation
No, you can't. No, you can't. You still can't.
Yes, you can.
Thanks, little goose girl. Thanks, fairy godmother. Thanks, Captain Bluebeard.
Love y'all.
Bye.
Oh!